I remember my own baptism. It was 12 days after I was born. There was a blizzard. There was a terrible blizzard on the day I was born. It was on April 14th. I'll pause so you can write that down. And then 12 days later, on the day of my baptism, it was an absolutely gorgeous, beautiful spring day. It was like that first day of spring where the temperatures were in the low 70s. And the sun was shining. And the sky was blue. It's just marvelous. And as my parents brought me out of the church after baptism and looked up at the skies were clear and the clouds had parted. And there was a deep baritone voice that said, "This one is going to be a challenge." And it was the voice of my grandfather who looked at my parents, who already had 2 other children under the age of 3. And he looked at them holding me and said, "This one's going to be a challenge. We need to walk with you." Sometimes I think we forget that we're baptized into this creation, this messy, troubled, sometimes painful, beautiful, joyful, loving creation. We kind of get fixated on some sort of notion that baptism is like a cosmic admission ticket into the pearly gates or something. And we forget that we're baptized here, now, in this creation. And we ask ourselves, I ask, why would Jesus need to be baptized? And even John the Baptist asked that question. He's like, what are you doing here? But we're reminded that Jesus didn't come to baptism because he needed it. He came because he wanted it. He wanted it. Before Jesus came, before this incarnation of God, there was distance, there was separation between God and humanity, between creator and creation, between heaven and earth. Separation. And the whole point of incarnation, the whole point of Jesus' birth and his presence, the whole point of him being here with us and among us is to close that gap and bring us all into unity with creator and creation, God and humanity, heaven and earth, to bring us all back into communion. Excuse me. So he goes down to the Jordan and he takes the plunge. Now, the Jordan River, the Jordan River is a desert river. It's not exactly fed by the pristine melt of Canadian snow. It's muddy and gritty and sandy and silty. It's an earthy river. And Jesus takes that full plunge into the earthiness of this creation. And then he emerges. But he doesn't leave his baptism at the Jordan. That's so important. He doesn't leave it there. He takes it with him. And if you read the gospel from here forward, just story after story after story of him living out that baptism, of continuously closing that gap, of continuously bringing harmony to all creation with Creator. Again and again and again. And then he says to us, you do the same. Do what I've done. Do we? Do we live out our baptism? Or do we treat it like an event that happened? Do we, like Jesus, take it forward? Or do we leave it in the church? If you win the Masters golf championship, you're given a green jacket. There's a lot of golfers. Have any of you ever won the Masters? Like, you're given a green jacket, and it's sharp and it's beautiful, and so you're such a proud moment. But you have to leave the green jacket there at the Augusta National Country Club. You can't take it with you. It stays there. And the only time you can ever put it on is when you return there. And I wonder sometimes if that's how we treat the white garment of baptism. If we receive it at baptism and then leave it in the church and go out into the world, and we'll get back to it. Part of the instruction of baptism is to take this white garment and return with it unstained into heaven. And perhaps we've decided it's easiest to keep that garment lily white and pristine if we leave it hanging in the church, in the coat room. Because I'm not sure that out in the world, it's clear that baptized people live differently. I'm not sure that out in the world it's clear that baptized people are continuously working to bring wholeness and harmony, to close the gap between Creator and creation, to bring love, peace, joy, mercy, as Christ did. I'm not sure. We see glimpses of it. When those living waters of baptism splash upon us, one of two things are going to happen. Either we're going to allow them to soak into our pores and nourish our hearts and our souls and our minds and mingle with our blood and become who we are. Or we're going to let them just evaporate as soon as we step out into the sunshine. Now, in the first case, we live like Christ did. We follow a road of peace, harmony, dignity, love, reaching out across all divisions to create a sense of one body of Christ, to create holy communion in the world, bringing all life together. We don't really have a good word for this in our language, but the Hebrews do. Shalom. You've heard it, shalom. Sometimes we translate that as peace, but it's so much more than peace. It's that sense of wholeness, of harmony, of unity between Creator and all creation. The path of shalom. That's the path Jesus walked. That's how he lived out his baptism. The other option is a path of individualism, of going out into this world seeking to do what's best for me. Last week, Pope Leo met with all of the Vatican diplomats, international diplomats. And his instruction to them was to encourage all world leaders to make decisions based on conscience rather than on interest. To make decisions based on what their heart and conscience says, rather than what pursues their own interest. That's the difference between these two paths. The path of shalom, doing what brings love and harmony and unity into the world, versus the path of individualism and self-interest, which leads to division and conflict and violence. There are plenty of examples out in the world of people bringing shalom. There's also plenty of examples of people just pursuing self-interest, usually at the expense of others, the opposite of shalom. So what about us? Does our baptism matter in how we live our lives? Are we wearing that white garment into the world? Does it affect the way are we awed, when we look at the mountains and the trees and the rivers and the white, beautiful snowfall? Are we awed at God's creation? Do we see ourselves in harmony with it? When we look at each other, when we look at the unborn child, the aging patient with Alzheimer's, the vulnerable, homeless person with mental health disorders, the immigrant and refugee seeking a life for their family, do we see our sense of baptismal unity, our sense of shalom with all creation, creator and creation as one? Or do we pursue division? May the living waters of baptism rain down upon you. May the living waters of baptism stir the hearts within you. And may the living waters of baptism flow into this creation through you.